Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to look at a game which a student of mine and I played together during one of our lessons. Um, Let me find that game. Um, this is the best of my students. He is rated in the mid 1700s in real life. And he and I played a very interesting game together during one of our lessons. And that was the game. And let's take a look because it was a very instructive game. We had black pieces. Let me turn off the moves. E4, C5, Sicilian defense, F4. F4 is a very small inaccuracy. Usually, if white wants to play F4, he needs to play knight C3 first. But it's not the end of the world. D5 is played. White pushes, which is okay for white. It's also okay for black because now black has a number of different ideas. We played knight c6, developing the knight f3, bishop g4. Before playing e6, we bring out the bishop. h3, attacking the bishop. We decide to take. The logic behind taking is after e6, all our pawns will be on the light squares, so we get rid of our light square bishop, and then hopefully our pawns are going to restrict this bishop, which will be on the light squares. White took back, now e6, c3, knight h6, the knight wants to go to f5, white directly stops it. Now Aiden wanted to play queen h4. I was not a big fan of that, but his logic was that it makes it a little bit harder for white to castle. The downside of that, of course, is it takes up two moves because after g3 we have to go back, which in fact would happen. Okay, so we move back. And white plays bishop c2, which makes perfect sense because white needs to develop his queenside. Adam here played d4, which is not a terrible move, but perhaps there were better alternatives. And white decides to castle. And here, Aiden made a small mistake. He plays here. This move actually ends up working out brilliantly, but for the time being, it's just a pawn blunder. Well, but unintentionally, it ends up leading to a very, very instructive game. Okay, white takes with the bishop. He's up a full pawn. Makes sense. Aiden plays here. Queen b6. Of course, all of you know what black's threat is. I will give you a few seconds to find it. Well, if you notice, the queen is on the same diagonal as the king, so black is threatening to play. Okay, and white decided to get the king out of there. Maybe he should have moved the bishop, because white needs to develop the queen side, so maybe something like bishop e4 or bishop c2 could have been better. Aiden decided to castle long. Makes sense. Black is down a pawn, so the idea is to try to make the position as active as possible, and maybe some good things will happen. White decides that he wants to trade, which makes sense. Knight f5. And here white should probably take this one and ruin black pawns, but white decided to ruin black pawns on the other side. So, and it somewhat makes sense because white is up a pawn. Black takes back. knight a3, perhaps not the greatest move in the world, and the reason is that now black plays a very nice move, queen a6, which A makes it a little bit hard for white queen to move, and 2 threatens to put something on this square. And the problem with this for white is he would like to get these pieces into the game, but it's not so easy to do because d4 will lose a pawn, and after anything else, rook here will happen. In addition, the queen also covers this square where the knight can sometimes go. So white's position is not so exciting. White does try to bring the knight back into the game, but now rook d3, and we see the problem. White has some significant issues getting these pieces into the game, this bishop and this rook. The queen is attacked. Queen moves. And now white has to be extremely careful because black is about to launch an attack. If black activates his pieces, we will have the case where white will be playing without his rook and his bishop. White should probably consider playing h4 to stop h4 by black. But white does not do it. White brings the knight in as this pawn, and this of course allows black to play h4. It's a pawn sacrifice, but it doesn't matter. The problem is if black spends a move to defend, then white can finally realize that he needs to stop black's attack. If you look at this position, white is now up to pawns, but it doesn't really matter because black is activating all his pieces. And now the rook is playing chess. And g5 to rip open the remaining defense that white has. The logic here is if white takes, black can take here. Otherwise, black might push. Which is what happens. And white goes for it because white thought that he can play queen f5, attacking the king and the knight. And the problem is the knight cannot block because the rook falls. And otherwise black has to trade queens. But the problem for white is even after the queen trade, which is now forced by the way, because if the queen moves, this happens. After the queen trade, black still is doing much better. After takes, black is down to pawns, but black is using all 4 pieces. And black has a simple idea of bringing the bishop in and playing something like knight here with pressure on this guy. White has to be extremely careful now, and king g2 is arguably the only move which doesn't collapse right away. Although if I turn the computer on, I think it will say that black is already significantly better. But at least white needs to try to defend very precisely. Instead, white plays rook e1, which of course allows a final simple tactic. I will give you a few seconds to find it. It's of course knight here, which forks these 2 guys. And after this move, white resigned. A very important lesson from this game, we just get back to this position. Even with the queens of the board, you do need to have your pieces playing chess. Despite the fact that white is up to pawns, these 2 pieces are not participating, and essentially this is a 4-on-2 battle. Normally you see examples like this played on a slightly lower level, so seeing it on the level of 1900, 2000 on chess.com is kind of interesting. I hope you enjoyed the video. A lot more instructive material will come up shortly.